Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Planning for Retirement Part 2, What Women Need to Know Later in Their Careers. My name is Yumhee Park, and I'm the Engagement and Mobilization Associate at the National Women's Law Center and today's moderator. We have a few technical notes before we begin the presentations. First, all lines will be on mute during today's webinar. Second, we will be taking questions after our experts are finished with the presentation, but we encourage you to submit questions throughout the webinar. You can submit a question by typing it using the chat function. Finally, we will be recording the webinar, and you will receive a link to the recording of the presentation, as well as a link to the slides within the next few days. At this point, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Benjamin Vecti from the National Academy of Social Insurance, and Jasmine Tucker and Amy Matsui from the National Women's Law Center. Ben is Vice President for Policy at the National Academy of Social Insurance. In this role, he leads the Academy's research and policy initiatives. He brings more than 2 decades of social insurance experience in diverse institutional environments in the United States and Germany. His research, teaching, and policy work have been devoted to advancing our understanding of the role of social insurance in thriving economies and democratic societies. Ben earned his master's in public administration from Harvard's Kennedy School and his PhD in modern European history from the University of Chicago. Jasmine is Director of Research at the National Women's Law Center, where her research and analysis focuses on improving the economic security of women and their families. Her areas of expertise are safety net programs, Social Security, federal spending, and tax policy. She was also a senior policy analyst at the National Academy of Social Insurance and was lead author of the groundbreaking public opinion study, Strengthening Social Security, What Do Americans Want? Amy is Senior Counsel and Director of Government Relations at the National Women's Law Center. She works on economic security issues, including retirement savings and tax benefits for women and their families. At this point, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ben.
Thank you. Can we proceed to the next slide? So let's get started by talking about briefly about how Social Security works, what kind of benefits it pays, and then we'll move on to discussing the advantages to delaying claiming Social Security. Next slide. So Social Security provides a foundation of retirement income that retirees supplement with pensions, savings, and earnings. Benefits alone do not provide a comfortable level of living. The average benefit for retired workers in June 2016 was $1,348 a month, or about $16,176 a year. The average is somewhat lower for widowed spouses age 60 and older. It's just under $1,300 a month, or about $15,500 a year. The bottom half of this slide underscores that Social Security is designed to protect families, not just individuals, against the risk of lost income. Next slide. Social Security replaces 39% of earnings for a medium worker, but it replaces a larger share of prior earnings for lower earners and a smaller share of earnings for higher earners. This chart shows how Social Security benefits compare to the retiree's career average past earnings for a low, medium, high, and maximum taxable earner. In other words, somebody who earns the maximum amount that's taxable for Social Security each year, which is about $116,000, or was about $116,000 in 2015. The short bars in this chart are the benefits that a retiree would receive at age 65. The tall bars represent the retiree's typical career average lifetime earnings. Again, Social Security benefits replace a larger share of past earnings for lower earners. While higher earners receive larger benefit checks, those checks represent a smaller fraction of what they had been earning. For example, a low earner who made about $21,479 in 2015 would receive a Social Security benefit of about $11,270, which would replace about 53% of her prior earnings. A worker who always earned the maximum taxable amount, which was $123 in 2015, would get benefits that replace about 26% of her prior earnings. A 65-year-old who retired in 2016 with a lifetime of medium earnings, about $47,731, would receive about $18,579 a year, which would replace about 39% of past earnings. These benefits are for workers who claim Social Security at age 65. Workers who take benefits at 62, the earliest eligibility age, would receive lower benefits because they began receiving benefits early. For example, for a medium earner, benefits would replace about 33% of prior earnings if claimed at 62, compared to 39% if claimed at 65. Next slide. Social Security benefits are relatively modest both in dollar amounts and in relation to retirees' prior earnings. Yet the benefits are critically important to the individuals and families that receive them. Nearly 84% of married couples and unmarried persons age 65 and older receive Social Security. It is the major source of income for most of these beneficiaries. Over 3 in 5 of those beneficiaries, 61%, rely on Social Security for half or more of their total income from all sources. About 1 in 3 elderly beneficiaries get almost all, 90% or more, of their income from Social Security. Next slide. Social Security is especially important to unmarried people who rely on Social Security benefits for a higher percentage of their income than married couples. Unmarried women in particular rely on Social Security more heavily than unmarried men. Next slide. So we'd like you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. When you're 70, what percentage of your income do you expect to come from Social Security? This is a poll, and you can fill it out online. Next slide. The I see the results here. So I see a majority of you expect to receive less than 50% of your income from Social Security at retirement at age 70. We can discuss that a little bit more later on. So next slide. Now we're going to discuss the pros and cons of delaying Social Security, claiming benefits at a later age. So the first thing you need to understand is what your full benefit age is, or your full retirement age. Social Security has a range of retirement ages, but to receive your full benefit, there is one age that applies to each birth cohort. Now, over the last couple of decades, the Social Security full benefit age has been rising from 65 to 67. For most current retirees, the full benefit age was 65. For those born between 1943 and 1954, it is now 66. For each birth year thereafter, the full benefit age rises by 2 months, as you see in the chart. For those born in 1960 or later, the full benefit age is 67. Next slide. So when can you take Social Security? The answer is you can claim Social Security at any age between 62 and 70. Monthly benefits are reduced if taken before your full benefit age or your full retirement age. Benefits are increased for each month that you wait to claim benefits beyond your full retirement age. For older seniors who had a full retirement age of 65, benefits claimed at 62 were reduced to 80% of the full amount. For those birth cohorts with a full retirement age of 66, as in this slide, benefits claimed at 62 are reduced to 75% of the full amount. For those with a full retirement age of 67, benefits claimed at 62 were reduced to 70% of the full amount. So in other words, the more recently you were born, the higher your full benefit age is, and the bigger the benefit cut is for retiring early. For each year prior to your full retirement age that you claim benefits, your monthly benefits will be reduced for life by 6 to 8% per year. For example, if that full benefit age is 67 and you claim at 65, your monthly benefits will be reduced to 86.7% of the full amount every month for the rest of your life. Simply put, increasing the full retirement age by 1 year represents a benefit cut of about 6 to 7% for all retired worker beneficiaries. So any future increases in the retirement age will further exacerbate these benefit cuts that come from the raised retirement age. Next slide. As you see here, there really is no one Social Security retirement age. We've highlighted in purple the full benefit age for those who have that full benefit age of 66. So if your full benefit age is 66, as in this chart, you see that if you retire after 66, your benefits go up. For example, let's say hypothetically you had a $1,000 monthly benefit for Social Security. If you retired at 67, it would go up by $80 a month. And for the next couple of years after that, it would go up another $80 per month. And if you retired earlier, it would be cut by about $70 per month. This is a simplified chart, but it shows you that there really is no one Social Security retirement age. You can retire anywhere between 62 and 70. And for every year that you wait to retire, or wait to claim benefits rather, beyond 62, your benefits will go up. So it pays to wait and claim benefits as late as you can afford to wait, because if you do so, you'll have higher monthly benefits for the rest of your life. Next slide. So how does work affect your benefits? Working longer can increase your benefits. If you are younger than your full benefit age, your Social Security benefits are subject to an earnings test. Earnings above a certain limit, relatively low limit, will cause the Social Security Administration to withhold some of your benefits. You'll get that money back when you reach your full retirement age, but the Social Security will withhold those benefits while you're still working. This is because Social Security benefits are conceived as retirement benefits, and if you're still working, you're not fully retired. So some of those benefits are withheld then, but they're given back to you once you reach your full benefit age. If, however, you are older than your full retirement age, you can work without any of your Social Security benefits being withheld. Next slide. So why should you wait to take benefits if you can? The reason is that the longer you live, the more important Social Security is likely to be. It lasts as long as you live, so you will get monthly benefits from Social Security until the day that you die. And it keeps up with inflation. So as opposed to for example, many defined benefit pensions that traditional employer pensions often, typically in fact, do not keep up with inflation. But Social Security benefits do. So they're a very secure foundation for retirement income. So by waiting to claim, you can increase the size of that monthly check, and that monthly check will keep pace with inflation, and it'll be there for you as long as you live. So however you can pump up the value of that monthly check, you should. And by claiming benefits later, you can increase the value of that monthly check. Now, of course, if you are in poor health and don't have a long life expectancy, in other words, if you don't expect to live into your 80s, for example, then it doesn't make sense to delay claiming. But if you do feel like you are healthy and have good odds of living a long life, it definitely makes sense to wait to claim. Next slide. Another reason for this is that couples have two lives to plan for. So when thinking about this, you're not just thinking about your Social Security check. You should also think about the fact that if you were to die and leave a spouse behind, if you're the higher earner, delaying Social Security means a higher benefit for your spouse if he or she outlives you. So when you die, if you were the higher earner, your spouse would get your Social Security check until he or she dies. So it's extremely valuable to you and your spouse to have a high Social Security check, and delaying claiming can increase the value of your check. As of 2013, more than half of couples age 65 will have one spouse live beyond age 90. Next slide. So the National Academy of Social Insurance, which is the organization in which I work, has a whole initiative on explaining the pros and cons of waiting to claim Social Security. You can find this on our webpage under nasi.org/it pays to wait. Next slide. Jasmine?
Hey, yeah, this is Jasmine. This is not my slide, though, so I didn't know if you wanted to say something about your brief before I start talking about how...
Oh, I apologize. I thought we passed it on. Yes, so one more thought. The National Academy came out with a new brief that was released today on overcoming barriers to retirement security for women. It's a brief that looks at the challenges to retirement security that women face from living longer than men, caregiving responsibilities, the gender pay gap, etc., and how Social Security currently helps address those retirement challenges, and how Social Security could be reformed to better address the retirement needs of women. So if that's something that interests you, you might want to check out that brief. So I think I'm passing it on to you now, Jasmine. Next slide.
Okay, thanks so much, Ben, for sort of laying the groundwork and telling us about how Social Security works and the important benefits of waiting past age 62 or past even your full retirement age to claim Social Security benefits. And so one thing that I want to build on what you said is that the day that you retire does not necessarily mean the day that you should claim your Social Security benefits, right? So if you want to stop working at, say, age 62, but you can, you have some savings to tide you over, and Amy's going to talk about this a little bit later about savings and work. But if you retire at age 62 and you have some savings and you can wait to claim Social Security, say at age, your full retirement age, 66 or 67, there are some strategies that you can employ to sort of maximize your benefit, but still, ending work when you would like to. But also, I do want to sort of reiterate, what Ben was saying, that if you need Social Security benefits, then, you have paid into the program over many years, and you should absolutely take those benefits. You've earned them. Okay, so let's jump right in and talk about some specific ways that you can make the most of your Social Security in retirement. But first, we're going to do a quick poll. So a couple of questions that we hope that you'll answer for us. And the first is, are you already claiming Social Security retirement benefits? So we'll just give you a couple of seconds to answer. Okay, I think we can look at the results now. Okay, so nobody has claimed their benefits. Okay, good. So I think this will be really helpful so you can learn about some good strategies. Okay, so the second is, and so everyone can answer the second one because nobody has claimed yet, but what age do you plan to claim your Social Security retirement benefits? And so we're looking at early retirement, 62 to 65. Some of us have a retirement age of 66 or 67, so select that if that applies. And then 68 to 70 will be sort of after your full retirement age and sort of really maximizing the benefit that you'll receive. So go ahead and choose the one that you're planning, the age at which you're planning to claim your benefit. And we'll just give you a couple seconds. Okay, let's look at those results. Okay, so this is good. This is good. So a good third of you are planning to wait beyond your full retirement age. I assume that this is roughly half of you who are going to claim at about 66 or 67, and then 20%. Okay, great. All right, this is helpful. All right, so let's move on. And before we start talking about some of those specific strategies, I want to spend just a few more minutes covering sort of why Social Security is so important to women. So women are more likely to take time out of the workforce to care for children or other family members. They're more likely to work part-time, and both of these things can impact the amount of money that you receive from Social Security when you retire. And so also, because women are typically paid less than men, they have lower lifetime earnings, and then as a result, sort of lower lifetime savings. But because they tend to live longer than men, they have to stretch those earnings or savings over more years. So what all of this sort of means is that women, are more reliant on Social Security income in retirement than men, and Ben sort of laid out some of those stats. But more than half of women who are 65 and older receive 50% or more of their total income from Social Security. So the poll that we took in Ben's presentation showed that, a lot of you don't think you're going to get a lot of your income from Social Security, but that might not be the case, because the data show that women do rely heavily on Social Security income in retirement. So it's sort of difficult to overstate just how important Social Security is for women and will likely be for you when you retire. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know we've talked some about what protection Social Security offers you, but let's talk about what they mean for women and for families. And so really the bottom line of these three protections that Social Security offers is that Social Security is a family insurance plan. So first, it's a virtually universal retirement plan that covers workers even when they're self-employed, if they work part-time, if they have multiple job changes throughout their career. And in addition to being a retirement plan for you, if you yourself were a worker, it also provides benefits to spouses of retired workers. And that spousal benefit is worth up to 50% of your spouse's benefit or your own benefit as a worker, whichever of those is higher. So an important thing to know about the spousal retirement benefits is that if you are eligible for those benefits, you are eligible for those benefits even if you are divorced. So your marriage must have lasted for at least 10 years. And when you claim your spousal benefit, it has no impact on your ex-spouse's benefit, even if he or she is remarried. Additionally, in light of last year's Supreme Court decision, Social Security now recognizes same-sex marriages, and that's regardless of the state that you live in. So that means that same-sex married couples are also eligible for Social Security's spousal benefits. Okay, so moving on to the second protection, Social Security also provides disability insurance that replaces part of your income if you become disabled while you're still working. And it also provides benefits to the spouses and dependent children of workers who become disabled. And then finally, Social Security provides life insurance protection to spouses and dependent children of deceased workers. So this is also worth up to 50% of your spouse benefit or your own benefit as a worker, whichever of those is higher. And so since this is a webinar about retirement, I'm going to be focusing sort of specifically on the benefits Social Security offers to spouses of retired workers or spouses of deceased workers. Next slide, please. Okay. So how do you or how does your spouse qualify for Social Security? Virtually all jobs, about 96%, are covered by Social Security. So there are some sort of state and local government jobs that have other retirement plans and are not covered. And if you're not sure whether your job is or was covered under Social Security, the easiest way to find out is to either check a pay stub to see if that FICA tax has come out of your pay, or you can log on to ssa.gov and create an account with your Social Security number to find out how much you've paid into the system over the course of your career. All right, so to qualify for a worker benefit of your own, you need to have worked, you need to have earned enough credits. And likewise, to qualify for a spousal benefit, your spouse must have earned enough credits. So it doesn't take a lot to earn a credit. In 2016, 1 credit is earned if you worked and earned $1,260, but you can only earn 4 credits per year. So the higher that your earnings are, the higher your Social Security benefit will be. And you need 10 years worth of work or 40 credits in order to be eligible for retirement benefits under Social Security. And while you need just 10 years of work, Social Security calculates your retirement benefits based on your 35 highest earning years. So your benefit is higher if you earned more over your lifetime. And something to think about now for those folks who are sort of nearing retirement but who are still working, if you're earning more now than when you were younger, or say you took some time out of the workforce and you have some years with 0 earnings, is whether you can continue to work at a job at those higher wages in order to bring up your Social Security benefit. One sort of neat thing about Social Security is that the timing of when you earn those credits makes absolutely no difference. You can still come back and make up low or zero earning years, even if you're close to retirement. Next slide, please. Okay, so when can you claim benefits? So from our poll, we know that that some of you are starting to think about Social Security and starting to claim soon, and we heard, you know, from Ben how it benefits you to wait beyond age 62. So let's spend some time now and talk about when it might make sense to claim benefits as a spouse versus as a worker, for your own worker benefit. So you can claim a benefit as the spouse of a retired worker as early as age 62, but you should know that your benefit will be lower. So this falls in line with what Ben was saying about early versus delayed claiming. If you claim early at age 62, you'll receive a smaller benefit, but you receive that benefit over a longer time period. So if you wait until your full retirement age, you'll receive a slightly larger monthly benefit, but you do so over a shorter time period. So note that if you're claiming benefits as the spouse of a retired worker, that you should not wait beyond your full retirement age to do so. So unlike worker benefits that continue to grow if you wait beyond your full retirement age, you know, until 70, your spousal benefit does not increase beyond your full retirement age. So there's no advantage to waiting past age 66 or 67, depending on the year you were born, to claim that benefit. And if you're married and want to claim Social Security benefits as the spouse of a retired worker, your spouse must have already filed a claim for Social Security for his or her own benefit before you qualify for that spousal benefit. But if you're a divorced spouse, you do not need to wait for your ex-spouse to claim benefits before you can claim your own. And it doesn't matter, again, if your spouse is remarried. But there are a couple more rules you have to consider if you are divorced. First, you must have been married for 10 years or more. We already covered that. And second, your ex-spouse must be at least 62 years old. And then third, you must have been divorced for at least 2 years. So one other thing I want to mention about spouse benefits is that last year, some rules about choosing between claiming your spouse benefit or your own worker benefit changed. So if you turned 62 before January 1st of 2016, you might be able to still choose between whether you want to receive your own spousal benefit or your own worker benefit when you file for Social Security. And so if this applies to you, it might make sense for you to claim your spousal benefit at age 62 or your full retirement age and sort of continue to let your own worker benefit grow until age 70, which sort of will maximize your monthly benefit amount. But for those of us who will turn 62 after January 1 this year, we will not have that choice. We will not get to choose which benefit we receive. We're going to automatically be treated as though we have applied for both, and so we'll simply just receive whichever benefit is higher when we do claim. Next slide, please. All right. So let's talk about widowed spouses, where the rules are a little bit different. So if you want to claim Social Security benefits as a widowed spouse of a worker, you can do so as early as age 60. But just like other Social Security spouse retirement benefits, the amount that you receive is going to be reduced if you claim them before your full retirement age. So just like the retired spouse benefit that we just discussed on the previous slide, there is no benefit to waiting to claim a widowed spouse benefit past your full retirement age because the benefits are not going to grow further. So make sure that you claim those benefits at your full retirement age. Another thing to know as a surviving spouse is that when your spouse claims benefit, claims their benefit matters. So this is what Ben was talking about, you know, sort of planning for 2 lives. So if your spouse was the higher earner and he or she claimed their retirement benefit at age 62, your spousal benefit when he or she passes away is going to be lower. But sort of on the other hand, if the higher earner waited to claim benefits until after his or her full retirement age, your survivor's benefit is then going to be higher. So you know, you need to think about both of you and who, you know, what that looks like and who's the higher earner and really strategize in that regard. So if you're eligible for both a retirement benefit and a widowed spouse benefit, you do have some options, and that's regardless of your current age. So remember I mentioned just a couple minutes ago that some rules were changed that don't allow for a choice to take your own worker benefit or your spouse benefit. That doesn't apply to widowed spouses. So you're still able to choose whether to claim your own worker benefit or a widowed spouse benefit when you file for Social Security. So for example, you could claim your worker benefit early at age 62, even though it's going to be reduced, and claim your widowed spouse benefit at your full retirement age if that would be if that benefit would be larger, or you could, or vice versa. If you know that your own worker benefit will be greater than your spousal benefit, you could choose to let that benefit grow. Just keep in mind that there is no benefit to waiting beyond your full retirement age to claim benefits as a widowed spouse. Next slide, please. So to wrap up, I just want to reiterate a couple of points I've made. I know this can be difficult and complex, and we're throwing a lot of information at you at once. But women especially need to think about how they can make the most of their Social Security in retirement, because they're more reliant on Social Security income and tend to live longer than men. You are eligible for a Social Security benefit as a worker or a spouse, but not both. And when you file for benefits, you're going to receive whichever benefit is higher. Also remember that spousal benefits, like worker benefits, are reduced if you claim them before your full retirement age. However, unlike worker benefits, there is no advantage to waiting beyond your full retirement age to claim them, because they will not continue to grow. And finally, it may be appropriate for you and your spouse to decide together when each of you claims, so that you can choose the strategy that will maximize the amount that you receive from Social Security in retirement. And with that, I will turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Jasmine, and I want to thank both you and Ben for giving us this great information about Social Security. Our goal for those of you who are participating on the webinar is to give you information that you can use to help put the pieces together for you. So all of this is information that you can apply to your own situation. If you need to retire early, if you can wait, depending on what your ability is to save, you need to tailor your retirement plan to you, and we hope that we can give you the tools to think about making both your Social Security and other retirement income work best for you. So the reason that my portion, which is about other retirement income from savings and work, comes after Social Security is really to reiterate the fact that, as Ben and Jasmine pointed out, women really rely on Social Security. It's the bedrock foundation of our retirement security. Next slide, please. But every little bit that you can put away in savings can help, and there we want to talk about some strategies to help you make the most of all of your retirement income. So I wanted to start off by kind of focusing our thinking about how you can use your retirement savings by asking you about your plans. So how are you planning to use your retirement savings? So one option is not sure, which is totally legitimate. Another option is use savings to supplement Social Security benefits. Another option, to make an emergency fund. And the last option, I don't have enough saved to make a difference. We'll give everybody a couple of seconds to fill out the poll. And then Yumhee, if you could show us the results, that would be great. So over almost 3/4 of you are thinking of using your savings to supplement Social Security, and some of you are, about half, as many of you are unsure of how to use your retirement savings as think that you don't have enough saved to make a difference, and hopefully the rest of this presentation will help you change your mind on that. Next slide, please. So just to have a quick review about some of the different ways that you can save for retirement throughout your career. Ben earlier mentioned traditional defined benefit pensions, and these are pensions that your employer manages, pays into for you, and then when you retire, you receive a monthly benefit, which may or may not be adjusted for inflation. Because so few jobs offer defined benefit pensions, these are largely government jobs or union-covered jobs, we're going to spend most of our time talking about retirement savings accounts. So these include employer-sponsored savings accounts like 401ks for nonprofits. These can be 403bs and other kind of profit-sharing vehicles. In addition to savings accounts that you can access at work, there are also retirement savings tax-preferred accounts called individual retirement accounts, or IRAs. And the Treasury Department offers a smaller, kind of a starter IRA called the MIRA, which is also available if you don't have a savings plan through your employer. Next slide, please. So as you are planning throughout your career, hopefully this is just kind of a review for those of you who are mid-career and looking closer at retirement. Whenever you're saving for retirement, either through an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k or for an IRA or MIRA, you can start small. Every little bit can help, and we just want to help you think about how to use whatever you have been able to save as well as possible. If you can, over time, as your pay increases and your experience increases, you can increase your contributions up to the kind of the maximum, which is set by the IRS and Treasury. For those of you who are saving through a retirement plan at work, make sure that you're checking to ensure that you're contributing enough so that your savings can be matched. Many employers will match their employee savings, but often you have to save at a particular level before the employer will chip in as well. In addition to saving in these special retirement accounts which offer tax advantages, if you are under a certain amount of income, you can claim a tax credit for your savings in retirement vehicles. So that is something that you can claim on your tax return every year. And then as you're going through your career, remember to keep track of your savings as you move from job to job. In many cases, you can roll account balances over into your new employer's plan if they offer one. You can also roll retirement savings account balances into an IRA so that you don't get hit with tax penalties. But at the very least, in some cases, you can even leave your savings with your old employer, but in all of these cases, make sure that you know how to get in touch with your employer's plan and that the employer's plan knows how to get in touch with you. In addition, just as a general rule of thumb, at the beginning of your career, you're going to have more risky investments, more stocks, so that your savings have the potential to grow at the beginning of your career and you have more time to even out any losses that may occur. And so accordingly, as you're getting closer to retirement age, you want those investments to be a little bit more secure so you don't have as many fluctuations in your account balance as you're getting closer to retirement. And then finally, just, again, everyone has circumstances and emergencies, but because these savings accounts are special and tax favored for retirement, and you're investing in you, the best possible option, if you can, is to leave the money in the account to save for your future retirement. Next slide, please. So there are some things that you should think about as you're coming towards the middle to end of your career, and the ends of our careers for many of us are going to be later than we thought, so it may even be the midpoint. As I mentioned in the prior slide, you should be trying, if possible, to increase your contributions. And then, as I mentioned, the tax benefits are tied to a contribution limit. So in 2016, you can contribute up to $16,000, which sounds like it is a lot, to a 401k and still get tax benefits. And then for an IRA, you can contribute up to $5,500. If you're over age 50 and you can spare the income, you can do a catch-up contribution. So this may help you make up for, as Jasmine was talking about, years where you had lower earnings, if you were working part-time, if you were home taking care of family members, or just at the beginning of your career when your earnings were lower and you weren't able to save. you can have some time to catch up a little bit in your savings. And so these are, you have to kind of look at what your overall financial situation is to see what is affordable and feasible for you. You know, folks often talk about, you know, making some small sacrifices in your lifestyle to be able to contribute more to savings, and so that's something that you should just know it's an option for you to have more retirement tax-preferred savings if that's something that you can afford and works for your financial situation. And then as you reach this point in your career, definitely look at your investments overall, all those little accounts that you may have accumulated over time, and what the investments are and what the fees are for the different accounts that you're in to make sure that your money is working as hard as possible for you. Next slide, please. So if you have spent your career saving and you have an account like a 401k, an IRA, or a MIRA, what's going to happen when you retire? As I mentioned, a defined benefit plan has a great model in that you just start getting the annuity check in the mail once you retire, but the same is not true if you have a retirement savings account. So you have a couple of options when you retire, whenever that is. You can leave the money in the account. If you are happy with the fees, up to a certain point, you can just leave the money where it is if it's doing well and you're satisfied with how that account is earning for you. But at some point, you are going to have to take money out. You will need to start taking a certain amount of money out of your retirement savings vehicles at age 70 and a half. The tax code just doesn't want you to leave the money parked in, even if you could afford it. Another option that you have is to roll the savings over to another vehicle. You may put it into a bank account, you may put it into a mutual fund or a money market fund. Again, this is something that you need to look at given what the size of your account is and what the investments and interest are available. And then finally, you do have to start thinking about when you take the money out, depending on what the structure of the account is. There are going to be tax consequences for your distributions. That's when money gets taken out of the account. If you take your money out of a retirement savings account before age 50 and a half, you do have to pay a tax penalty on those distributions. But if you have a traditional IRA, 401k, when you take money out of your account, it's going to be taxed as income. This may be less of a problem than it sounds because when you retire, your income is lower, and so your tax bracket may also be lower. So it shouldn't be just a scary fact that there's going to be some income tax. And then in addition, if your retirement savings accounts are a Roth format, either a Roth IRA or a Roth style 401k, you will not get taxed when you take distributions from the account. So it's just important for you to know what kind of account you have so that you know what the tax consequences are. And you may have heard that, you know, for folks who are looking at their retirement savings, that there are different calculations that you can make about how much to take out, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next couple slides. Next slide, please. So how can you best use your savings? Again, just to reiterate, this is going to depend very much about what your overall financial situation is, but here are a couple of options. One is that you can take money and take distributions out of your savings accounts as you're receiving Social Security to bump up those benefits. As Jasmine and Ben mentioned, the average Social Security benefits are modest at best, and they're intended to provide the basis for your retirement income. And so savings can increase those. You may want to look at, you know, kind of project out, given a reasonable life expectancy, how much you can take out of the account every month or every year. One benchmark is every year to take out 4%, but that's definitely something that you should revisit. Alternatively, something that you can do is use your retirement savings to provide you with income so that you can delay claiming Social Security benefits. As Ben and Jasmine pointed out, the longer you wait, if you can, the higher your Social Security benefits will be. And because those benefits are designed to last for the rest of your life, they're inflation adjusted, they're never going to get smaller. Sometimes for folks it's a good investment to use some portion of their retirement savings to make it feasible to push back claiming Social Security. And then another option for folks to think about is they may want to use their savings to, or a portion of it, to buy an annuity on the private market or buy something which is an instrument called longevity insurance, which is intended to kind of kick in when you reach age 80 or 85 if you think that you're going to run out of other sources of income, obviously not Social Security because that will last for the rest of your life. So all of these are options that you can consider to make your savings work as strategically as possible for you, given what the rest of your finances look like. Next slide, please. I know that we're coming to the end of our presentation, but I do briefly want to cover the fact that folks are going to be working longer, and so people often have questions about how income from work can figure into their retirement income. So if you are working, and you may be able to forego or forestall taking distributions from your retirement savings accounts, it may give you more time to save, and then it can possibly boost benefits if you delay boosting Social Security, as Jasmine mentioned, depending on what your work income looks like. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give us time to turn to the questions that many of you have submitted by chat and submitted before the webinar started, but I did want to give a couple of warnings for you. So, you know, you've worked your whole life to earn Social Security benefits, you've worked your whole life for your savings, and this is an investment in your own retirement. So think hard and do some really serious research before you do any of these four things. So first of all, you may have wanted your whole life to run your own business, but think very hard before you invest a big portion of your retirement savings into starting a small business or, for example, buying an investment property, because these are the savings that you are going to rely on for the rest of your life and for your retirement. Another thing that you should think very hard about if you own your own home is if you feel like you would like extra income and are hearing people talking about a reverse mortgage where you're going to convey the title of your house over to a financial services company or bank, and they will give you income. So again, because that may be an asset that you're relying on, think very carefully and do a lot of research before diving into a reverse mortgage. Similarly, if you have a life insurance policy and you have an option to cash out of that, think about what the insurance policy was for and why you purchased it in the first place. And then I know I did mention that some folks will decide that buying an annuity, which could, you know, provide income for the rest of your life or for a particular term, is a viable option that people can think about using their retirement savings for. But there are a lot of different kinds of annuities, and one is a variable annuity which fluctuates with interest rates, and so that is something that you should pay very close attention to if you are thinking about investing your retirement savings in an annuity. Next slide, please. So we have a number of resources for you, and I'm going to leave this slide and the next slide up. There's a link to the report that Ben mentioned in his presentation, as well as some other resources that we hope will be helpful for you. But we wanted at this point to turn to some of the questions that you had for us. So the first question I'm going to ask is, do you have suggestions for those of us who got a late start planning for retirement? So Ben or Jasmine, any thoughts?
Well, I certainly think, I just want to reiterate that point that I made in the beginning. You know, the day that you retire does not necessarily mean the day that you should claim your Social Security benefits. So, you know, definitely if you are able, let that benefit continue to grow so that the monthly benefit that you'll receive from Social Security will be higher. And then whether you choose to continue to work, whether it's part-time or full-time, while you continue to save, you know, any little bit I think can help. And I guess Amy will have better thoughts about, you know, the best saving strategies. So I'll leave that to her.
And Ben, any thoughts about what folks can do if they've kind of started their retirement planning later in their careers than they would have liked?
Yeah, so I would reiterate what Jasmine said and also what you said earlier, that it makes sense. Certainly, the longer that you can work, you know, Social Security benefits are based on your top 35 earnings years, the average of your top 35 earnings years. That's the wages that is the basis for determining what your benefit will be. So if you don't have 35 good earnings years, in other words, say you worked part-time for a few years or were out of the workforce for a few years, and you only have maybe 30 years with any earnings whatsoever, and maybe 10 of those 30 are really low because you were working part-time, then it absolutely makes sense to try to keep working as long as you can to get to increase the number of good earnings years that you have. So just earning more will help you get a higher benefit. And then, as you were saying before, you can make catch-up payments into your IRA or 401k plan. You put as much as possible into your IRA and 401k as soon as possible, so that money can work for you, and then delay claiming until as late. If you're in good health, delay claiming until 70, so your benefit grows to be as large as it can be.
Thanks to both of you. Those are all great suggestions. And I would also just add, and I say this with, you know, a couple of older relatives who are having to do the same thing right now, is you know, there are hard choices to make about your current spending, but you may want to consider, in addition to working, are there ways that you can save on expenses? Does this mean that you are getting a roommate where you're currently living? Are there changes to your spending where you can cut back to increase your spending? These are hard questions that you can ask yourself if you decide that it's important for you to kind of start saving in addition to continuing to work and increase your Social Security benefits. So another question that we have had come in is, if I start claiming Social Security at 63, can I still work? Will my Social Security benefits be affected? Do either of you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure, I can answer.
Sure.
Well, go ahead. Well, Jasmine, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so basically, yes, you can work and claim Social Security at the same time. But as I was saying, because Social Security is conceived as a retirement benefit, the retirement benefits are conceived as benefits for people who are actually retired. If you haven't reached your full retirement age, which is 66 for most people now, and some people, you can see the chart on one of the slides in the presentation to see where your birth year is and what your exact full retirement age is. But if you're working and claiming before your full retirement age, then Social Security will withhold some of your benefits, but there's no reason to panic about that, because you'll get that money back when you hit your full retirement age. So you're not losing benefits. It's not cutting your benefits for the fact that you're working, so you'll get that money back, but it will withhold some of your benefits. But you can absolutely work and claim at the same time. But what tends to make more sense is to not claim until you're not earning anymore. Because if you're working, you can probably get by on your income, and then when you really need your benefits later, you'll claim at a later age, and you'll have higher benefits from Social Security because you've waited. So that, in most cases, it makes sense to not claim until you absolutely need the money.
Great, thank you, Ben. And Jasmine, I think this question might be best directed towards you, and the question is, how does the Social Security benefit of my spouse get distributed between me and his previous spouse? So that's, how does the Social Security benefit of my spouse get distributed between me and a previous spouse? Is it split? Does each woman get a full benefit?
That's a great question. So as I mentioned earlier, when you claim your spouse benefit, it makes no difference for your spouse. And that includes, it makes no difference for your spouse's former spouse or if there are multiple former spouses. So each woman, as long as she was married to the spouse for 10 years or longer, she will be eligible for up to 50% of his benefit or her own benefit, whichever of those is higher. So there is no splitting of his benefit between two or more people. Each spouse, as long as they were married for 10 years or more, is eligible for a spouse benefit, up to 50% of his benefit.
Thank you. I think that clears things up. So I'm mindful of the time, and I think we have time for 2 more questions, one of which has to do with savings accounts, and I realize I brushed over this, so I will ask myself and then answer it. So the question is, what is a Roth-style retirement account? I mentioned a traditional savings account and a Roth savings account. So this is just a distinction that there are 2 different types of tax treatments of retirement savings. One kind is when you make a contribution to a retirement savings account, like a traditional 401k or IRA, your contributions are not taxed for income tax. So that means that your income is reduced for the amount of contributions that you make, and then you don't get taxed on what you put in, but you will get taxed on what you take out of the account as income. So that's often fine for folks because they will have less income in retirement and their tax rates and their tax burden may be smaller. A Roth-style account, which is which you have to explicitly select, and there are some income eligibility criteria, is that you do pay taxes on whatever contributions you make, ordinary income taxes, but you do not pay income taxes when you take money out of the account. So this is, depending on what your situation is, often a Roth IRA will be advantageous for you, especially over a long period of time, because hopefully your investments will grow and that account balance will grow. And since you paid taxes on the front end, you won't have to pay taxes on the back end. So these are just 2 different types of tax treatment of the different savings accounts, and you can check on what kind you have or what kind you may be investing in going forward. So the last question that I'm going to ask before I turn it back over to Yamhee to close out is, we did get a question about whether Social Security is going to be there for us when we reach retirement. And so Jasmine and Ben, I'll let you have the last word on this one as well.
Ben, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, Social Security will definitely be there for you when you reach retirement. I know that there's sort of a cottage industry of organizations that try to scare Americans into thinking that it won't be there for them. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of vested interest behind that. Obviously, if Social Security were eliminated, that money would go into investment funds on Wall Street, and people would make a lot of money off of your Social Security contributions through commissions and so forth. So, but that's not the facts. The facts are that Social Security is there. It's well funded. It has 85% of the money that it needs to pay benefits over the next 75 years. So there's a short financing shortfall over the next 75 years, but it's a modest one. Over $800 billion comes into the program every year in revenue. So there's plenty of money in Social Security to pay benefits. Moreover, it's a political choice. It will be there for everyone for the next 100 years if people want it to be and fight for it, and it won't be there if people don't fight for it. Jasmine?
Yeah, just to add on that, great polling that the National Academy of Social Insurance has done shows that people across age groups, on both sides of the aisle, everyone loves Social Security and wants to make sure that it stays strong. So the people, Americans are behind the program. So I think you're right. Like, it will be a big political battle if it if threats do come to Social Security. But also, I don't want anyone on this webinar to worry that it won't be there for them, because organizations like the National Women's Law Center and our partners, we're all going to remain vigilant to make sure that there are no attacks to Social Security, and if they are, then we're going to stand up to those attacks, and we have the people on our side, and so I think that's incredibly important.
Thanks to both of you. And then before I turn this over to Yamhi to close out, I just did want to remind folks that we will be sending around the PowerPoint presentation and the recording. So we hope that you'll be able to go back over and look at the slides and the resources for questions that you may have. We'll try and, get to any answer any questions that you didn't respond to, and I think our contact information is also on the slides. And then we hope that you pass this along. If you found the webinar to be useful, we hope you send it to your family and friends for them to use as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Yamhi.
Thank you, Amy. And as Amy said, we're going to be recording today's webinar, and we'll be sending an email with all that info for you all. And please feel free to email us any questions we didn't get to answer, and we'll make sure to send your response within a few days. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and have a great evening.